Hey YouTube, in this video I'll be talking about how much sprint volume you should be doing. I've actually already made a video on this, but you can take this as a part 2 to that video. Because in that video I talked about managing sprint volume more, because there's other things you need to be focusing on whilst you're sprinting, such as plyometrics and gym work. But in this video I'm going to be talking purely about the volume of sprinting that you should be doing. And the volume should be low. And the reason why it should be low is because throughout your season, most likely you're going to get faster. As you get faster, your body is going to struggle to withstand the speed you're able to travel at, because you're producing more force. The more force you're producing, the more weight your body has to bear, which means the higher volume it has to withstand from doing less work according to yourself. But in reality, you're doing a lot more work. Think of it like this. Say you're a 12-second sprinter. Imagine it takes you, let's say, 50 steps to do 100 meters. Let's replace every single one of those steps with a 50-kilogram squat. That would be 2,500 kilograms of weight. Correct me if I'm wrong. Now imagine you became an 11-second sprinter, flat. Now, let's say the steps are 40 instead of 50, but replace the steps again with a squat. That would be 4,000 kilograms of load instead of the 2,500 or 2.5k you was doing before, which just goes to show that you've gotten faster, you're traveling further with less steps, but the weight you're having to bear is even more. And when you think about this, it makes sense because you're producing more force, so it can only be this way. But if your body can only withstand a certain amount of load, let's say your body can only withstand 4,000 for an entire week, wouldn't it be insane to give your body all of that load in one day? Because you're gonna burn out, and then your form's gonna slightly degrade as you're not able to train as often. Then you're gonna have to remember how to do it the next week, and then you're only gonna train once. You can try and train twice, then you're gonna burn out again. It'd make a lot more sense to spread it over a certain period of time, whether it's 2 days or 3 days. You don't really need many days to train. But another reason why it's important is because as you get closer to this burnout number, because not just the burnout number for the week, but the burnout number for the day, because that number is much lower than the number for the week, your form will start to maybe not so much degrade, but the power output will decrease as the body tries to save itself. And you have to remember that we're sprinters, we're not runners. Runners, they can just run, improve their form, continue to run, and their times will go down. Sprinters, we can't do that. We have to refine our form, work hard to produce power, turn that into speed power, and then we have to continue to refine our form again and again and again, and then check if we're doing it right by sprinting, getting competition times, and just continuing on like that. But it's different when you're a runner. You can just keep going, but we're not runners, we're sprinters. And the reason why this is important, because for a runner, let's say they do 1k and it takes them 5 minutes to do 1k. If they did 5 times 1ks and they did 5 minutes, 6 minutes, 5 minutes, 5 minutes, and then 8 minutes, I think that was 5 times, then all of the times where they got a higher number, it's not that big of a deal. Why? Because they could just take it as aerobic training. They just need to get better next time. But if that happened with a sprinter, you're going to have to do the division thing, where you're going to have to look at all of the times you got and divide those by the amount, get the average. And once you've got the average, that's what your body's going to do. And if that time isn't fast or faster than what you normally put out when you're in competitions, your body's not going to adapt. It's just going to be like, oh, okay, this is where we already are. Oh, okay, we can slow down. Fine, let's slow down. But when you're sprinting, we don't really want this to be happening. We want to be getting faster, because we do care about aerobic base, but we can't get away with training our aerobic base and sacrificing our speed. What does that mean? We have to do less reps, less sets, and rest more, which is why if you just go on the internet, you'll see memes about mid and long distance sprinters laughing at the amount of rest we have, and then we throw them back at them saying the amount of reps and sets they do is crazy and the amount of volume they do is amazing. But they're putting less power into the ground, so technically they're putting in not that much more effort than we are, and because of this, the work's about the same, But they're not the point, because we are. If we want to get faster, we need to make sure that we balance the reps and sets. And to prove how important this is, I've improved so far in my season by 1.02 from last season to this season. And not, okay, I'm not going to say not once, I think twice is the only time where I've got, my coach gave me work to do, gave our group work to do, and I got through it from start to finish. One of those was 60-meter repeats. Actually, maybe 3 times. One of those was 60-meter repeats. The other one was, I think it was 40 meters, 60, then 80 meters. And then we played around with how you did that. Then the other one was just pure form work. It was like 50 or 60-meter runs at 40% effort. The only times I've ever gone through the entirety of a workout from start to finish. And I'm not a quitter, but the reason why you could say I quit was because I understand my body. Because there's a sweet spot when you're training after you've warmed up of where you're able to get the best work done. And that's between 3 reps to about 5 to 6. Any more than that, and there's a good chance that you're just hitting duds. The first 2 reps that you do, this is regardless of sets, by the way, the first 2 reps that you hit, these are duds, but you have to accept these duds. There's no way to get around them. Maybe you can remove these duds every now and then, where you get great training session. I mean, a great rep up until 6, and then you get the duds. But chances are you won't, and most workouts this won't happen, which means you're going to have to accept these first 2 duds, which are going to slightly ruin your averages. But as long as these are the only 2 duds and the great reps are the only great, they're just the great reps, and you don't overdo it, then there's no need to worry. And that's why I don't do these crazy amount of sets, because the reps generally aren't the problem, it's the sets. Because most of the time I do 1 or 2 sets and then I just stretch, and that's me. After that, I stretch, I go home. I get home around the same time as everyone else is. And if we were to compare my season to everyone else's season so far, for 100 and 200, a lot of the people that I train with, the times that they get that are faster than me, they hadn't been doing them for a while because they took time off or they got injured. So nothing we can do about that. But for the 100, this entire season, no one has improved even close to how much I have in one season. And maybe it could be because I was working my mobility by stretching after my training sessions. Maybe it's because I did less reps and sets, or maybe it was both. I think it was both, because the averages is real. And if you go beyond these numbers and you do more reps than you should, these averages will bring you down. And if you don't believe me, you can just go and check. Go and see, go find out for yourself from your own body what number of reps is where your body starts to decrease its performance. Because once this performance decrease happens, there's no point to continue training. And this performance decrease is 1 to 2% lower than, let's say, the first one you do, the first rep from the good ones, the great ones that you do. Once you, maybe even, not even that, about like, let's say the first 1 or 2 reps, let's use those as a benchmark. You can only do 2% worse than those. And once you get 2% worse than those, you're done. No more. That's it. Don't worry about anything else. I don't care if you plan to try and refine your form. I don't care if you was working on your power output. I don't care if you was trying to increase your stride rate or stride length or whatever. Once you get 2% lower than your first 2 reps, that's it. You call it quits. And if you do a crazy amount of volume, you're going to realize that now you can no longer do those crazy amounts of volume, because you've timed the first rep, you timed the other reps, and you've realized that after a certain amount of reps, maybe it's not 6 reps, maybe it's more than that, but after those reps, your body just says no more. And even if it is more than 6 reps, why would you do more? Because if you do more, there's no guarantee that they're going to be good. Because once you hit that point where the great reps have ended and you find out where the performance drops off, there's no point to even get there. Like, once you've got there once, because once you know where the performance starts to drop, why go again? Because if you go again and do that performance where you see that 2% drop, that's going to be added to your averages. And if you know when it's going to happen, don't let it happen. Another reason, and probably the biggest reason other than just getting slower or stagnating in sprinting, for why you should just keep the reps low when you're doing sprint volume, is because if you keep them high, there's a good chance you might injure yourself, especially if your form isn't the best. If you might get injured, you might accidentally peak whilst you're training, and all these other problems, which obviously no one would want, because why would you ever want to end your season early, and why would you ever want to peak early? And the reason why you don't want to peak early is because you're still going to improve with all the plyometrics and gym work you're doing. Maybe not by a crazy amount as much as you did in the off season, but still by a decent amount. And if you peak later, this extra boost you'd be able to get from your peak would allow you to truly hit the best time you could get for the season. Why would you trade that in just so you can gruel out a few extra reps? Because the difference between this early peak and the late peak that you should have got could have been like 0.3 seconds. And especially if you're at a barrier between any barrier, for like any second barrier or close to that, that 0.3 seconds could have meant a lot. Even if you're not there, that 0.3 seconds could have meant a lot, because those 0.3 could be the difference between being at breaking a barrier, being really close to accidentally falling behind that barrier again, getting midway into that second, or getting into the lower echelons of that second. These are just 0.3, such a big number, to the point where it's like, why would you ever accept doing extra reps and sets just to satisfy your ego, just so you can be slower? There isn't a valid reason. And once you figure out how to get your gym work and plyometrics in line, your body won't even be able to support any more training, because that's what's happened to me. My gym work, and not so much my gym work, I'm not in the gym as much as I used to be, but my plyometric training is so intense, but so almost perfect in a way, so that if I do any more volume than what I already do, I might slow down and I might get injured. And luckily for me, I've done this for the entire season. Literally 3 training sessions is the only time I ever got through the entire training session. And I'm talking about when we're actually sprinting, because we've done drills before, and obviously I got through the entirety of that. But they weren't often. So even if you include those, probably like 5 or 6 times where I got through a training session out of probably close to 100. And when you consider that and how much I've gone faster, it's kind of just leaving speed on the table, and there's no need and no point to leave speed on the table if you can, because if you wanted to leave speed on the table, you wouldn't have become a sprinter. So why would you ever accept this? So make sure you keep the reps and the sets low, and you listen to your body. Really, really listen to your body. Is it telling you that it can do another rep? Is it feeling uncomfortable? Because when you get to that, that's when you know you've ended it well. Because every single time you feel uncomfortable after you've ended your training session, you know you put in the right amount of work, because your body will continue to feel uncomfortable because it just had that great rep. But once it hits that unsatisfying rep, which would disappear once you do one more rep, it'll just feel like another day. Your legs will hurt, everything will hurt, and you won't feel uncomfortable like you want to go again. But if you just hold back, maybe your legs will still hurt and everything will still hurt, but you'll feel uncomfortable. And that uncomfortable feeling you should chase, because that's what's going to make you get faster. If you like my video, let me know in the comment section below. Check the description, because anything I forget to say in the video, I always put in the description. And if you like my content, subscribe. Helps the channel out a lot. I post every 2 days at 1 p.m. Greenwich Mean Time. If you don't know when that is, just hit the bell and then you'll be notified instantly.